This is the Literary License Podcast, classic novel episode, dealing with classics you must read before you die, and finding new life in between the dusty covers, exploring page to screen and everything in between with your co-hosts, Jesse Coates, Vicky Ray, Leandro Getzi, and Keith Chowgo, who ensure to bring the fun to an old standard.
Hello, welcome to Literary License Podcast, and we're in the classic novels for October, not November. We're in October, wishing my life away. And today we're covering Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson and the 1950s Disney classic Treasure Island. And before we get started, let's find out who's with us. We have Vicky Ray with us. Hello, Vicky.
Hello, everybody.
Leandro Gazzi. Hello, Leandro.
Hello, how are you?
Groovy. And hello, Jesse Fultz.
Hi, folks.
And we get started to find out what everyone's been up to since last time we spoke to them. So, Jesse, what have you been up to since last time we spoke to you?
I'm just catching up on some projects, running errands, the usual.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
What about yourself, Leandro? What have you been up to?
I'm back to work since the last 2 weeks.
Is that good?
Yeah, it's different, but I like it. More organized than before. And I have been working an allotment that I have and reading, and that's all.
And what about yourself, Vix? What about you?
Just hanging out with my kids and reading books and doing BMX stuff and finishing up The Boys, because I think we only got a couple more episodes coming, right, before they screw us for another year on that one. And what did I watch the other night ago? It was really interesting. Cursed Films. Any of you guys watch it?
Oh, yeah, that's quite good.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting.
What's that?
It's a documentary about cursed films that's on Shudder at the moment, and they cover Poltergeist, Twilight Zone, the movie with those, The Exorcist, and each there's like six episodes, and each episode covers a film that has
weird shit happened.
Supposedly cursed.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, because I've heard of a few of those, but to put them in sync, that's where do you find
Poltergeist? A lot of people died.
It's on Shudder. All the kids died, didn't they?
Yeah, pretty much. All the kids died. And what was that other? What was it? Darkness or whatever. It was the 4-hour documentary. I rewatched that again because I loved it.
Oh, that's
Into the Darkness.
Yeah, the 80s. Yeah, that's going to be part of our season 5 and season 6.
I started watching Eli Roth's horror special on AMC. Love it, love it, love it.
Oh, yeah, History of Horror. That's quite good.
History of Horror. It's actually really good. He's got anybody who's anybody on there.
Dang, I think I'm missing some stuff.
And I'm kind of afraid to put my toe in the water for the Walking Dead coming up this weekend. They have beyond the Walking Dead weird stuff. It's like Millennial Walking Dead. I don't know if I'm going to go there. It'll make me more bitchy. I'm just going to stick to the season finale that I've been waiting for. That never happened in April. But
I feel the same way.
Everything's cool. What about you, Keith?
Well, I've been watching An American Murder, which is a fascinating story about this man who murders his wife and 2 children.
In Colorado?
In Colorado. And what's quite bizarre is that it just shows you how much, it's not your typical documentary where you have people talking.
Right.
It's all done through Facebook clips that the wife made. It's all done with the texting. It's all done with the police camera that the guy has going how. It's all put together that way. So it just shows you how much of our lives are so much videoed. And it's quite scary, actually, because it's normally when you see a murder documentary, you do get reenactments, or you get and this you're just seeing everything filmed. It's kind of bizarre. So. And then I watched, which just started on Netflix as well, is Boys in the Band, which is based on a 1968 gay play. Has an all-star cast. It's produced by Ryan Murphy again, but it's quite interesting because I saw William Friedkin, who directed The Exorcist, directed the first film version of it back in '69, and because it dealt with gays before homosexuality was legal.
Right.
It showed. People were quite shocked by it. Now, what they've done in this version, it's almost it's shot by shot, except that when they do some memory things, they do kind of cut to a little bit of memory during the sadistic game. But what's also quite good that I watched after that, there is a documentary in the making of that Mort Crowley did. Now, what happened was is when Boys in the Band, before they did the Netflix movie of it, it did come on Broadway, and it did win Best Play of the Year, Best Revival.
I heard of it. I haven't seen it. It sounds really good, though.
Yeah, it's very good. I mean, it's all set in 1968, so it has a 1968 mentality of it when it was written.
Right.
And Mort Crowley, who wrote it, does the documentary, and he's talking. And he based it on all his friends at that time. And he shows pictures of his friends that most of them are now dead from AIDS and stuff. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, before the movie opened to Netflix, he died a week ago. So, but it's quite nice actually seeing. I've had Matt Boomers in it, and the guy from Big Bang Theory, Jim Pearson's in it, and it's very good. It's kind of bitter, but it's quite interesting to look at what the gay lifestyle was from 1968.
I can imagine how underground it must have been.
Mm-hmm. But it's very, very good. So I watched that. And besides that, I'm catching up on Lovecraft Country, which is fantastic on HBO, which is a black version of Lovecraft, which is kind of bizarre because that Lovecraft was a huge racist. Now they're doing a black show on the show. That's hilarious. Interesting. But it's very, very good. It's excellent. I mean, I've never seen so much gore and violence ever in a TV show that kind of beats even American Horror Story.
Oh, really? I have to watch it then. I haven't had a chance to because I've been watching other stuff. But I did touch base. Did you guys even catch any of that Social Dilemma on Netflix?
Is that the one about
social media and all the people, whistleblowers? Oh, my God. And I didn't watch all of it. But, man, it's how they know how to keep us at each other's throats. And they know how to put these algorithms in there. And it's wow. Just wow. And they make money off of getting us to hate each other. They love it.
Oh yeah, I mean it's done through like Facebook and Twitter and what's the other Instagram? They use it all against each other.
Instagram's not so bad.
Well, Instagram and Twitter have kind of gone to porn now. So basically, if you are a strapping, hunky young gay lad and you want to make money selling pictures of your feet and naked pictures of your body and doing videos, you can get people to go through Twitter, click on your little button on Twitter and go to pay a monthly subscription to see you on a thing called OnlyFans.
Wow.
Which a friend of mine's my friend Louis doing it. He's clearing about £4,000 a month.
I
made a joke about that in the last one, so
yeah. So Twitter's kind of gone there. And then so you got these people like posting like quite avant-garde pictures of themselves on Twitter, and you're kind of like to entice you, and you're just like, oh, okay. Well, Twitter's changed quite a bit. It's gone from this kind of political rhetoric to now there's a lot of porn now. So.
I think everybody's getting sick of the other, so they need to come up with something new to, and on Facebook, God, they got websites. I mean, I can't believe it. There's websites for men to find little boys on Facebook groups that just, and little girl, I just like, and if you click, if you click on them, then your name probably goes somewhere. I don't know what it is. I got a VPN now, so.
Yeah,
no one tracks me.
I even got VPN on my Xbox so I can watch Netflix from anywhere around the world. So
yeah, I like the VPN thing. It's one of the best things you turned me on to. Loving my VPN.
And on that note, what we're going to do now is cut to Story Geek, who's going to tell you what you can watch, what you can download, or what you can stream during the COVID-19. Take it away, Story Geek.
What movies and TV shows should you be watching the week of September 28th? I'm Jay Shearer, the executive producer of the Story Geeks podcast, and here are the movies and TV shows that you can watch, even including those coming out October 1st on all of the streaming channels. First off, guess what's new in theaters this week? If you guessed nothing, you're right. I hate to keep saying it, but we do not have any new content coming to theaters. So let's just go jump straight into streaming, shall we? There's a bunch of new content coming to Netflix, and it's all arriving on October 1st, as usual. First of the month, we get a whole bunch of new stuff. I'm not going to list out everything here, but I'm going to try and cover as much ground as I possibly can. So coming to Netflix as of October 1st, Ace Ventura, When Nature Calls, Along Came a Spider, Basic Instinct, Cape Fear, The Dukes of Hazzard, that's the 2005 version, Enemy at the Gates, Fargo, Free State of Jones, Ghost Rider, Gran Torino, Her, Stranger Than Fiction, Superman Returns, Troy, and War Games. Also, my biggest recommendation, and this may come as a surprise to some of you, is actually the Great British Bake Off. I think that that's a fantastic show, and I like watching it. Bake yourself a cake, sit down, get a nice big glass of milk, and watch the Great British Bake Off. Also, as of October 1st, we've got a lot of content coming to Amazon Prime. We've got 30 Days of Night, A Knight's Tale, which I believe is also on Netflix if you want to watch it on Netflix, Battlefield Earth, 8mm, Mud, National Security, Quantum of Solace, Raging Bull, Spaceballs, Species, The Da Vinci Code, The Departed, The Mask of Zorro, The Pianist, and The Wedding Planner. Again, I'm not listing all of the things that are coming out, but I'm trying to cover as much ground as I possibly can in this segment. Disney Plus has also added Maleficent, The Fault in Our Stars, Hidden Figures, and Oceans. So here's a question I have for you. Disney Plus is not adding nearly as much content as some of these other streaming services are. How do you feel about that? Is that okay, or do you like the aggregators better? Let me know. Also, coming out on Hulu as of October 1st, again, not a complete list, but a good chunk of them, A Beautiful Mind, the Blade series, Fallen, The Hurt Locker, Interview with a Vampire, Mad Max Beyond the Thunderdome, Mud, Raging Bull, Snakes on a Plane, Spaceballs, Species, Superbad, and Wayne's World 2. So, as you can see, there's a lot of movies coming out on multiple aggregating streaming services like Hulu, Amazon Prime, and Netflix. So sometimes you get to choose whatever service you would like to watch it on. As always, in my segment next week, I'll go through this list with a fine-toothed comb and let you know what I think you should watch. I've already taken a little bit of a cut at that, but I'll go even deeper in the next segment. Until next week, this has been Jay Shear from the Story Geeks Podcast, and I hope you have fun watching movies and TV shows wherever you can find them.
Hello, welcome back to Literary License Podcast, and we're discussing Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. And thank you, Story Geek, for all those fantastic suggestions, and I will be checking those out. Now that we're at the beginning of October, a lot of fantastic stuff's coming out. So anyway, back to Treasure Island is an adventure novel by Scottish author Robert Louis Stevenson, narrating a tale of buccaneers and buried gold. It influences enormous and popular perceptions of pirates, including such elements as treasure maps marked with an X, schooners, the black spot, tropical islands, and one-legged seamen bearing parrots on their shoulders and going arr.
200-year-old parrots.
As the most frequently dramatized of all novels, Treasure Island was originally considered a coming-of-age story and is noted for atmosphere, characters, and action. It was originally serialized in the children's magazine Young Folks from 1881 through 1882 under the title Treasure Island or the Mutiny of the Hispaniola. Credited to the pseudonym Captain George North, it was first published as a book on 14th November 1883 by Castle and Company. Now we'll go through a real quick synopsis here. So fasten your seatbelts, folks. This is going to be fun.
He always says that during the long book synopsises.
Tim Hawkins is a young boy who lives at his parents' inn, the Admiral Benbow, near Bristol, England. In the 18th century, an old sea captain named Billy Bones dies in the inn after being presented with a black spot or official pirate verdict of guilt or judgment. Jim is stirred to action by the spot and is mysteriously accurately portent of Billy's death. Hastily, Jim and his mother unlock Billy's sea chest, finding a logbook and map inside. Hearing steps outside, they leave with the document before Billy's pursuers ransack the inn. Jim realizes that the contents he has snatched from the sea chest must be valuable, as he takes one of the documents he has found to be some local acquaintance, Dr. Livesey and Squire Trelawney. Excited, they recognize it as a map for a huge treasure that the infamous pirate Captain Flint has buried on a distant island. Tyranny immediately starts planning an expedition. Naive in his negotiations to outfit his ship, the Hispaniola, Trelawney is tricked into hiring one of the Flint's former mates, Long John Silver, who would later open a seafood restaurant across the Midwest of America. No, I'm teasing. And many of the Flint's crews. Only the Captain Smollett is trustworthy. The ship sails set for Treasure Island with nothing amiss until Jim overhears Silver's plans for mutiny. Jim tells the captain about Silver and the rest of the rebellious crew. Landing at the island, Captain Smollett devises a plan to get most of the mutineers off the ship, allowing them leisurely time on shore. On a whim, Jim sneaks into the pirates' boat and goes ashore with them. Frightened of the pirates, Jim runs off alone, finding a hiding place. He witnessed Silver's murder of a sailor who refused to join the mutiny. Jim flies deeper into the heart of the island, where he encounters a half-crazed man named Ben Gunn. Ben has once served in Flint's crew, but was marooned on the island years earlier. Meanwhile, Smollett and his men have gone ashore and taken shelter in a stockade the pirates have built. Jim returns to the stockade, bringing Ben with him. Silver visits and attempts a negotiation with the captain, but the captain is weary and refuses to speak to him. The pirates attack the stockade the next day, and the captain is wounded. Eager to take action, Jim follows another whim and deserts his mates, sneaking off to hunt for Ben's handsome boat hidden in the woods. After finding Ben's boat, Jim sails out to this anchored ship with the intention of cutting it adrift, thereby depriving the pirates of a means of escape. He cuts the rope, but he realizes his small boat has drifted near the pirates' camp and fears he will be discovered. By chance, the pirates do not spot Jim, and he floats around the island until he catches sight of the ship drifting wildly. Struggling aboard, he discovers that one of the watchmen, Israel Hands, has killed the other watchman in its drunken fit. Jim takes control of the ship, but Israel turns against him. Jim is wounded but kills Israel. Jim returns to the stockade but finds it occupied by the pirates. Silver takes Jim's hostage, telling the boy that the captain has given the pirates the treasure map, provisions, and the use of the stockade in exchange for their lives. Jim realizes how Silver is having trouble managing the men, who accuses him of treachery. Silver proposes to Jim that they help each other survive by pretending Jim is a hostage. However, the men present Silver with a black spot and inform him that he is deposed as their commander. In a desperate attempt to gain control of his crew, Silver shows them the treasure map to appease them. Silver leads Jim and the men to the treasure site, but they are shocked to find it already evacuated and the treasure removed. The men are angered and mutiny again. At that moment, Dr. Livesey, Ben Gunn, and the others fire on the pirate band, but scattered throughout the island. Jim and Silver flee and are guided by the others to Ben's cave, where Ben has hidden the treasure, which he had discovered months before. After spending 3 days carrying the loot to the ship, the men prepare to set sail for home. There's a debate about the fate of the remaining mutineers. Despite the pirates' submissive pleas, they are left marooned on the island. Silver is allowed to join the voyage, but he sneaks off the ship one night with a portion of the treasure and is never heard from again. The voyage home comes to a close. Eventually, Captain Smollett retires from the sea, and Ben becomes a lodgekeeper. Jim swears off treasure hunting forever and suffers from nightmares about the sea and the gold coins.
And they lived happily ever after.
The
So-
Music Lab. Music by Music Lab. Music by Music Lab.
So, Leandro, what are your thoughts of Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson?
I really liked the book. It was a bit complicated for me because, well, English is not my first language, so there were a lot of words and phrases that I have to Google or check. But in general, yeah, I like it, and I like also that it had like short chapters, right? Instead of being like long things. So I enjoy it.
And what about yourself, Jess? What are your initial thoughts?
Obviously, there's a lot more going on with the book than there is with the movie. And I did like the in-depth nature of the book. I felt like the movie was kind of rushed and lacking in certain spots, and the sword play wasn't the best, the action wasn't the best, but yeah, that could all be fixed with some modern retelling.
I think we're just all spoiled to Pirates of the Caribbean. We're
That's
spoiled
true.
to Pirates of the Caribbean. We just are. We are.
It's true.
I mean, I found like Treasure Island was an interesting book. It kept me interested. It kind of moved at a regular pace. It's very episodic.
I
Well, it was
so, too. I
serial,
thought-
right? It was a serial, just like the Count of Monte Cristo. I guess. That's
Yeah,
the thing
but I
then.
did think the Count of Monte Cristo, I became a bit more invested in than this one. This was kind of like, it's kind of one of those, I guess it's kind of one of those children's books that you kind of read, and it's kind of like there's a lack of emotion to it. It's just kind of like there.
Exactly. There, you really aren't invested. Well, it's a coming of age book, okay? Complete, and this boy is like seeking out like male roles because his father's not, necessarily in his life,
I know. I genuinely felt bad for him.
Well, then he's got, was it Livesey and Trelawney? And no, they're not really the best of roles. So it looks like, he's Long John Silver is going to be this kid's, male role model. It's just all about growing up and coming of age and watching him grow from chapter to chapter. Because, he was like this innocent little boy running for help in the beginning. And here he is towards the end of the book, taking over pirate ships and killing pirates and whatnot. So, it was an evolution.
That would be
of this young man's
traumatizing
life.
for a child. That would be traumatizing for a child.
It's traumatizing for a child.
Oh, yeah.
But think of put yourself back into that time frame, though. Things are different. Now, people were carrying. Well, back in the day, not even up until 40 years, you had 17, 18-year-olds and sometimes 16-year-olds, trying to get into the army to go to the war. Now, everybody's worried about...
At the age of 13, you could be drafted at that time.
Yeah, and now everybody's worried about their romper, and things like that. So, things have changed somewhat.
No safe spaces in 1883.
There are no safe spaces in the 1800s. No safe word, no nothing.
Well, another thing you have to remember that kids, if parents didn't want their kids, they were in workhouse at this period.
Right.
Yeah.
To earn their keep, to earn their food, sort of thing. And they'd be like from the young age of 7 on up, sort of thing. So if you weren't adopted by the age of 7, you were thrown to a workhouse. And you stayed there for almost the rest of your life. So
it's sad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to sit there and say that I did find interesting that, you start off with this naive, innocent boy. And as he goes through, and then there's that cusp where he can turn one way or the other. He can go Long John Silver pirate route, or he can go to the good man. Like how Robert Louis Stevenson kept him centrally located, so he didn't lean one way or another. But he does come across as the most mature of them all. He's the one that has the brains, which is kind of bizarre when you're looking at all these men around him. It's nothing but men around him, but he's the one with the brain and the moral compass.
Yeah, there isn't too much of a moral compass on either side because everybody wants the treasure. And it's funny how everybody just seems to, this boy needs the money and his mother needs the money far more so than all these other guys. And it seems like he becomes an afterthought once the map is revealed. And, and it's about human greed, basically. It's a never-ending theme through most books. You have to have greed as an antagonist.
Well, I mean, that's what everything's about. Murder is based on greed, whether it's greed of being in a relationship with someone or greed over the money. It's always down to money or jealousy, but it's all based on jealousy is a form of greed. If I can't have you, no one will.
Kind of thing, yeah.
So
maybe it could be like a bit like not boring, but it's like if you see in this book there's nothing about love. And in all the other movies or books that we read, there's always something going on. In here, it's like seems to be like something like really serious. And when I was checking today on Google, like interesting facts about the movie, it said like it's true. There's no appearance of any single woman in the movie. There's no in the book, yes, his mom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's it, really.
There's no girls, so it's like kind of like really at that time directed for men, boys, and adventure. And I think that the lack of not any girl or love or anything makes it so like one subject, and that's all.
Well, I know that in the 1800s, that when Ben got lonely on the ship, they used to pass around the cabin boy.
True.
Deck, romance. Yeah, cabin boy, the handsome cabin boy.
Well, even back then, though,
the cabin boy was always pretty and handsome.
Yeah,
on the ship.
God, man, that just disturbs me, Keith. I'm going to have that thought with me all day long now, as if my morning didn't already start off in a great.
I'm never going on.
Can you imagine the way they smelt?
Oh, God, they were filthy. I mean, I don't think they used to jump in the ocean. So that seafaring men back then were probably pretty grody.
Well, hey, some people are into that.
Are you?
Nope. I'm extremely OCD about, like, people's hygiene, my own hygiene, so on and so forth. No, thank you.
Yeah, nothing's worse when you're sitting there and you can smell yourself. Like no.
Yeah,
So,
but when you're thinking about the lack of love, Leandro, I mean, the story was originally titled "The Sea Cook." It was a story for boys, and it was idly. I guess they idly drew a map, him and his stepson, on a rainy day in Scotland. Who could imagine a rainy day in Scotland? And they just decided to start with a story, and even Stevenson's father helped him with a story, I believe. And so they just concocted all this stuff because there was actual pirates. There was a Captain Flint, and these pirates all actually existed at one time. And it's really interesting if you look into the actual stories. I think Black Sails had it pretty much. The closest thing I could find to anything about pirate life was Black Sails that was on Stars. It was close. It was really dramatic and everything, artistic license. But it was the closest thing that really actually happened.
Oh, the HBO pirate series?
Yeah, no,
Black Sails?
Stars, Black Sails. I loved it. I think I binged watched all 4 or 5
That's
seasons.
on my list. I want to see that.
Oh yeah, it's excellent. Love.
Perfect.
I mean, another interesting theme of Treasure Island is solitude, and it seems like Jim is suffering around in his solitary, but even the crew members are all very based in their own solitude. Because they don't work together. There's no teamwork. There's nothing going on. That it's all about themselves. Everyone is a single unit.
That's true.
Which is amazing that even if they have it's almost like by luck that the ship even makes it to the island, really, because they're all fighting amongst each other. They're not working together. You got the person who's supposed to be leading them who's too busy down below drinking rum as an alcoholic, and everyone's kind of like doing the bare minimum to get to where they're going.
Well, the whole book,
which is quite an interesting story when you think of that we're dealing with a book that has a large cast, really.
Yeah, it's huge,
and it's all about solitude, and
it's all about satisfaction of desires, because that's all there is desire to find this, desire for treasure. I mean, it's not, there's like Leandro said, there's really no woman in here. There's no desire for love. There's no, romantic interest, except maybe the cabin boy. I don't know. But,
well, another thing is normally like in a children's novels, you have an animal per se, or like a pet or something like this.
Right.
The only animal we have here is the parrot, but the parrot basically is just about the pirate's inhumanity. So normally you have a pet there to show the humanity of the person,
right,
in a story, the way that they treat their pet, whether it's Charlotte's Web, or whether it's Alice in Wonderland, or Tom Sawyer, or Huckleberry Finn, so on and so forth. Where here it's kind of bizarre because the only animal that you have really is the pirate. Okay, you have goats that they kill for food. Okay, there's no interaction with those, but then you have the pirate, which basically is like a reflection of their inhumanity, which is quite an interesting idea to actually put across. That you got the parrot who mimics the inhumanity of his owner.
Yeah, and it kind of weighs in that there's no structure or rules of society in their existence either. I mean, it's just all every man for themselves, I guess, to coin the phrase.
It kind of is, yeah, because they're really quick to just, betray one another, shoot each other, just there's no loyalty whatsoever with any of these people, it seems, until, he saves the little boy at the end, Long John Silver, when he gets stabbed.
Well, you would think there'd be one that wouldn't too, because I think Silver has more. What's not morals? What's what I want to say? I don't even know if it's loyalty, but he's got something more going on towards the boy than Trelawney and Livesey.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a classic case where you kind of have the villain more interesting than the hero.
Well, the villain is kind of a hero.
Well, he's a hero. He's a hero to the simple fact that he's a hero if it's going to benefit him.
Or the
he's not a hero. He's not an indiscriminate hero. He's a discriminate hero, meaning that basically if it's going to benefit him, he'll play the part of the hero if he's going to get something out of it. But he's not going to just be the hero just to help someone out and just like, okay, now pay it forward. I'm off. Thank you. Where's my sainthood? Sort of thing.
Right. But Stevenson didn't glorify their criminality though so much.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Jess.
That's okay. I do think that the best villains of any story are almost like a reflection or like the shadow self of the protagonist. And I feel like that's kind of what I guess Long John Silver's character is like the shadow self of like what he could become, because he didn't have any role models or anything like that. So I think every person's kind of faced with that aspect in life, especially when I think in school, like, people experience this too. Like kids, if they have to decide if they want to be like the cool kid or if they want to be their own person and stuff like that. And sometimes you give into things like peer pressure or, whatever your peers or the people that you look up to are doing, or you can decide to go the other route despite the peer pressure and all that other stuff. So I feel like there's these different forces kind of taking place. So I can see why it's, kind of maybe an allegory for like growing up and stuff like that. It kind of reminded me of Peter Pan and like all these different stories that are kind of similar, that are also
high seas adventure, boy coming into his own, I mean, well, I guess women did have their own stories, like, Little Women and things like that back then. So I guess it wasn't just per se little boys' adventures. So, but it was more, I think, gender specific towards either girls or either boys, maybe. I think it made yeah, but back then girls were raised different. They were like little ladies. Exactly. This is about dirty, scummy men, all being smelly, passing around the cabin boy.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you did have other literature out here, but it was more adult. So if you had like a female pursuing a quote unquote male, like a male characteristics, you had things like Moll Flanders,
right?
And things like that basically, like, you might have this woman who basically would like become a highwayman, but that was normally because she was, mom died when she was young, tossed from pillar to post, and she becomes a woman of her own. So in order to become a woman of her own, she had to adapt the male persona in order to get what she wants, sort of thing.
That's interesting.
Now, interesting thing that Robert Stevenson actually did the prototype for the pirates. And I guess what we also have is now that what we have is like folklore about pirates is the color black, which, I mean, the Goths will love this part of it. But everything that deals with the pirates is black, whether it's the Jolly Roger, which is a black flag with the cross and the black spot. They go out in the black of night, and they basically are dressed in black, or wherever they leave behind the death in their wake. So about black, which is quite interesting when you consider that. But it's kind of weird because in this kind of setting, though, black is very prominent when it comes to the pirates. But when you do get to part of normality, especially Jim and his mom, and then when they go to set sail, I have to sit there and say it was a bunch of muted colors against the black, which is kind of right. Because it didn't look like it was a jolly holiday, was it, in England? It wasn't. Everything was kind of dismal gray sky. And
it was a very dark book, actually, for a children's book. There really was no happiness to be found in it, really, when you think about it. I mean, and when you get even in chapter, the first chapter, they're doing, I didn't know this is where this came from, the 15 men on a dead man's chest, yo-yo, and a bottle of rum. And that ditty is one of the best-known legacies of Treasure Island. And it encapsulates drink, death, and wickedness, which are always inextricably linked to pirates. So, I mean, that you're right, that the thematics throughout the whole book is dark, and you don't see too much light. I don't even think Ben Gunn was light. He just wanted a piece of cheese. Why?
Well, he was mad, but he was mad, wasn't he? He was kind of like the comedy. He was kind of like the comedy relief in it, but he was also stark raving mad.
Yeah, he was, and he wasn't like 3 months. He stood, but was this happened in like a year's time? Did it not? Flint get the treasure, put it there, and he killed everybody, as pirates would do, so they wouldn't reveal where the treasure was. He put the man pointing like a compass to where it was. Ben Gunn, I think, didn't he escape? For refresh my memory, didn't he escape Flint's wrath, or
Yeah, he escaped Flint's wrath and he went hiding, and they sailed off without him, leaving him solitude and on the island like a Robinson Crusoe without a Wilson sort of thing. So all he had on the island was goats that he used to hunt and eat, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we do get Jim at one point experiencing the pirate life really when he steals the coracle, Ben's boat. You know, he does, steals the ship back and, and murders another pirate, Smollett, I think. Smollett?
Smollett was the captain.
Yeah.
Ishmael? Why is that coming to mind?
Oh, yeah, Ishmael. Which we'll cover again in
Moby Dick. Ishmael returns.
Call me Ishmael. So I thought that was quite interesting that he gave Jim an interesting life so to keep him from the morale. It's like, okay, this could be the life for him, but then of course he's back to his moral center again.
Right.
And then of course, but I mean, I guess it's quite bizarre that we have a book that's written in 1883 with folklore about pirates, and to this day, all that folklore about pirates is still alive today. We got the Jolly Roger, we got the, the treasure chest, the treasure map, the X's, so on and so forth.
The patch on the eye, the parrot.
Yeah,
all the cliches.
Drinking the rum, hey, yo ho ho, and a bucket of rum.
That great. That must have been because of all the cane in the Caribbean. I know that. But I mean, it's not that great. Rum is really a vile, detestable drink as far as okay,
Keira Knightley. Okay.
Keira Knightley. Where's all the rum?
I mean, my only problem with the book is that, and I this is a personal pet peeve of mine, and I reading a lot of novels, and whenever they're written like this, I always kind of go, ugh. And when they're written from a first person's point of view, because to me, they're going to make it at the end because dead men can't write.
Dead men tell no tales.
It kind of where if it was like written in the third person, and it's like God's view of the situation. That way, you would never know if Jim made it or not, or what kind of
switch though too. They switched to was narrating. Livesey narrates for like several chapters too.
Yeah, but the thing is, that Jim's going to make it at the end because he says so in the very beginning.
Yeah, this is true.
And sometimes, and though that's an interesting device, I would say that if it was written from a third person's perspective, I didn't know if Jim was going to make it or not. I think I probably might have been more invested in the adventure a little bit more.
Right.
Think like he could die because he's not going to die. It's kind of a bit like. It's a bit like if you see a movie star in a movie, no matter if it's a murder mystery or something, that person's going to make it at the end.
But it is a boy's tale, though, and you don't want that. Somebody, it's sort of like Free Willy. When that movie came out, everybody made sure before you went to see the movie, if you had little ones, and my kids were all little, that Free Willy does not die at the end. So everybody would go see it. Make sure the whale's fine. So it's kind of like that. Everybody, you don't want to go in. It's like, oh man, I'm going to read this book and this kid's going to get killed by the pirates, Well,
I got some questions for you about the novel. So why do you think Robert Louis Stevenson chooses a boy to narrate this tale?
Well, he's got to show adventure from a young, fresh mind through fresh eyes. How he perceives, as a young man, how he perceives pirates as opposed to the gentleman. How he evolves, during the adventure and the influence of the pirates on his development as a human being, and the gentleman types or the other people that are involved in the story as his development. How does he evolve during the story being around these people? Because if it's an old man, he's already set in his ways. There's not going to be too much evolution with an older character.
Yeah.
Maybe I also think that maybe he did it because if this is written for boys and reading the word I all the time, maybe it's that way that they can put
themselves into it. So like
it's a bit like if you ever look at Twilight, people who really like Twilight, people who like not the film but the book series, and because that's written in the first person, a lot of them I think walk around thinking they're Bella.
Yeah,
why they love it so much. I mean, Bella is probably one of the worst fucking characters there. What a bitch.
She was the cunt. She's the cunt.
She is. I couldn't get through it because I hated her, and I had to sit there and say that's the problem with first person narrative. That sometimes you really got to like the character,
Yeah.
because when you hear I this and I that and I this, if they come across as a bit,
She was a whiner. That was a horrible example. She was a whiny bitch.
she thought she was better than everyone else.
Yes.
So you're thinking it's like you're not that great, babe.
She wasn't in the movies either.
No, well, I don't blame Kristen Stewart for that. I actually blame the book.
Director.
Well, I blame the book. I read the first book, I didn't read the other ones. But the thing is, she's going I this and I that. She thinks she's better than the people she's going to school with. She thinks she's better than the town she settled in. She thinks she's better than her father. She thinks she's better than her mother. And by the time you I, it's like, you kind of need a person that you can identify with.
Right.
And I think that maybe that, he uses a boy there, I think, because I think that young boys can actually read this and picture themselves in the adventure. I agree with that. But I think by leaving the emotion out and leaving out Jim's internal way of thinking, because there's no internal thinking of Jim at all.
I would have liked more of that. Personally,
Yeah.
I think gives more meaty substance to the characters, and then he views the characters differently if he has more feeling. But I think honestly, when it came to Long John Silver, he had the most feeling for him. Considering this was about a boy, he was really searching for male role models throughout the whole thing, basically.
Yeah, after the death of his father.
Yeah.
So, why do you think Robert Louis Stevenson makes such an effort to show Long John Silver's positive traits? Why not just keep him just evil?
To show that people aren't black and white. Like, there's more layers to a human being. There's more going on inside the human, especially when, it's easy for us to take any character or any, even in real life, to look at a murderer or someone who killed someone and just see them as an evil person without realizing that, they also might have good traits too. They might, if you look at a character like Jeffrey Dahmer, there was a videotape of him, talking about his grandma and petting a cat and stuff like that. And
poor cat.
You gotta, I know, right? But you gotta wonder what else is there behind the villain character aside from just being purely evil? Because I don't think typically most people or villains are evil just for the sake of it, even though 2D animated films kind of depict that. I think there's always more to it. There's always more motivational factors. And sometimes it just comes down to the fact that people are just selfish and have their own ambitions, their own goals, their own agenda. Yeah. And sometimes, when it's all for them, they're willing to backstab and betray.
Well, 300,000 pounds. Wasn't that what the treasure was worth, I think? What does that equivocate to in modern times? I don't know.
Probably quite a few million, I imagine, nowadays.
So,
Then it also depends on what gold is, what the value of gold is at a time.
But did you notice, though, that he really wasn't, Jim wasn't so much interested in the gold as where it came from? He was more fascinated with where it came from and what year it was minted kind of thing when you get into the story. Because he wasn't really, I don't think he really cared about the fortune that much.
Well, the interesting thing is okay, they find this fortune. And then all of a sudden they claim it as their own, but it had to come from somewhere. So the people who actually got stolen from them, or for what reasons, they don't have a say.
Apparently.
So basically, it's like if someone steals your family heirlooms, and I find them, buried in my back garden, do you have a right to those because I found them?
Possession, they say 9/10 of the law, I guess.
So what we'll do before we go to the movie, let's talk about our final thoughts of Treasure Island, the book. So, Vix, what's your final thoughts of Treasure Island, the novel?
Well, I guess as an old broad, it didn't hit me as much as it would probably a nice young man. I liked it still, though, because, it's one of those, what we got it from, 100 books you have to read before you die. Just one of those books you have to read because Treasure Island evokes so much mystery of piracy, and who doesn't, everybody's like, especially if you do go to the Caribbean. I remember when Brittany took me there in February, I was sitting there looking out at the Caribbean, the blue sea and stuff, and just like I started wondering about pirates. I wonder if all these cats were here on this beach and probably buried some shit somewhere.
Drinking some rum.
Oh, yeah, I did. That's a whole other story. Another podcast.
Of course. After the Spanish landed there and killed all the indigenous.
After they killed all the Caribbeans, yeah. But I mean, it does kind of evoke some mystery and interest. And then it was kind of interesting being there because the natives have their own story of Christopher Columbus coming into their ports of call. They shared things with me. And then when Christopher Columbus pulled in to the Cane Harbor, the Carib Indians started shooting arrows and stuff at them because they did not want their ass on their island. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think it was a good book. I mean, I would like how you brought up, have it a little more meaty or more substance and more feeling, because I'm a girl and it's all about feelings. So, as you all well know. But no, it would have been better that way a little bit. I mean, there's no room for romantic interest in it, that's for sure. It's a boy's story,
Exactly. Yeah.
I think all little boys should read Treasure Island and read about pirates and, and not so fluffy things anymore.
What about yourself, Jess? What are your final thoughts?
I thought it was fascinating. The pace, like you said earlier, I thought was really good too. And I thought it picked up more towards the middle, more middle and end. Or I don't know. I don't know. It picked up later on in the book. I don't know how you would specify it was the middle.
Well, it kind of had to evolve and get all the storylines of the characters in place.
Yeah.
Yeah, so kind of a slow burn, as Keith would say.
Yeah, exactly. I had a hard time getting into it in the beginning, but once you get into it, it's a lot easier once you get past the big hump. It's
kind of fun. I just had Johnny Depp in my head the whole time I was reading.
Oh, no,
and then,
I had
then
Barbosa.
Black Sails kept popping. I go, Captain Flint wasn't this much of an asshole in Black Sails.
I was reminded of Barbosa in both the book and
the movie, that too. Yeah, Barbosa. I just love that movie. I don't care what Keith says. I love it.
And what about yourself, Leandro? What are your final thoughts of the book?
I watched the movie the other day, and I prefer the book. The movie was going a bit slow at the beginning, and then even when, for example, when they have the action, it's like they found the gold. Yeah, but it's like, I don't know, it's like going slow, like not like there's something, I don't know. I imagine that because the first movie that I watched about pirates was like, I don't know, maybe when I was a kid, Peter Pan or the Pirates of the Caribbean, and both from Disney, and then the action there is different. And this one, this was the first movie that Disney made with real people, and I think they modified a bit the story. They did a good work, and the music I really like it, but yeah, I prefer the book to me.
As far as my ideas of the book goes, I'm glad I read it. I don't think I'll revisit it anytime soon. I think what shocked me the most is that how many people get killed and die.
Yeah, there's a lot of death. For coming of age,
I mean, the thing is, I have the idea of what Treasure Island is, and now I have the reality. And my idea was, I don't know, I kind of thought, okay, maybe a person would die here and there, but it wouldn't actually be. I mean, one person gets trampled to death by a horse. Right. the blind guy.
Right. He had it coming though. Pew.
Yeah. He had it coming. And I also found it quite weird that, to go a bit further, what Vicky said is that it did lack some emotional depth for me. So even when he's parting from his mom, and the dad died, it's like, okay, the dad died, okay, but there's not a mourning period, there's not a sadness, there's not a depression there, and the mom and him just get on.
And I'm sure he needed her,
Yeah. I mean, they gave her a place for safety, so that way she's safe. But at the same time, but there wasn't that great big departing that I'm leaving my mom, no tears, nothing. It's kind of like, okay, off you go. I mean, how old is he supposed to be? 8 or 9?
13, isn't he?
Is he 13 in the story?
I'm thinking he's 12 or 13.
I couldn't really. He's 14. So you just think that, it's like your dad just died, and then you're kind of going off and leaving your mom, and there was none of that. Oh, I'm leaving home. It's like on this adventure, jolly ho, yay, 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 sort of thing. And but I did like the episodicness of it. I like the thing that it kept rolling, it kept going, sort of thing. And it's like, okay, here we go. But I did lack the emotional depth that I would want from reading a book.
Yeah, because there was no internal dialogue. I feel like that would have definitely helped, like you and Biggie both said.
I'm just wondering, I haven't read too much of anything Stevenson has wrote.
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Dr. Jekyll, yeah.
Okay, well, there you go. He doesn't have much depth in that book either. Well, not any emotion. It's really just, it's like, it's kind of like this, now that I think about it.
Well, around the same time, we did have Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer, but then again, that's
Mark Twain is a different writer.
Well, but American authors are different than English authors at this time. English authors you got to remember is that English people didn't have a lot of emotion.
Yeah, they didn't have emotion.
They're all like hiding their emotions and leaving it behind, sort of thing. And they're all they're quite sexually repressed, aren't they? I mean, that's as far as the writing goes.
Corsets and clothing,
Well, yeah, I don't know how any woman got raped. By the time you raped a woman in those days, you'd be so tuckered out, you just go to sleep. By the time you got all those layers.
It's true. You couldn't just rip down a cloth and have at it like in Game of Thrones. That's for sure.
Yeah, but it was just, but they were quite emotionally repressed as well, and I think it does show in this more than anything. Count of Monte Cristo was written by a Frenchman. This is written by an Englishman. So I think even though they come around the same area, and then you look at Huckleberry Finn, and Tom's, and there's a lot of more emotion in those books than this English book that we have written at the same time. I guess we'll probably know more when we cover. I think we're covering another English. I think we're doing the Picture of Dorian Gray, aren't we? Next year, and A Christmas Carol, of course, by Dickens. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of emotional depth those have when we read those, sort of thing. Well, now that brings us to Treasure Island, the 1950 film from Disney, which is a live-action adventure film adapted from Robert Louis Stevenson's 1883 novel by Byron Haskins, stars Bobbie Driscoll as Jim Hawkins and Robert Newton as Long John Silver. Treasure Island is notable for being Disney's first completely live-action film and the first screen version of Treasure Island made in color. It was filmed in England on locations at Denham Film Studios, Buckinghamshire. What we're going to do is cut to the trailer and be right back after the trailer.
Disney, whose artistry marked a new era in motion picture entertainment, now sets a new milestone with his first all-live action feature, Treasure Island, the story which thrilled 200 million readers throughout the world. Only Walt Disney could bring to realistic life, and with such dramatic impact, Robert Louis Stevenson's memorable characters. Long John Silver, portrayed by that world-famous star, Robert Newton.
We can take this ship right now.
Then I say cut their throats. And I say there'll be no killing till I gives the word. Shipmates.
Shipmates.
Bobbie Driscoll, the 1949 Academy Award winner for his outstanding performances in The Window and So Dear to My Heart, plays Jim Hawkins, the boy who faced 1,000 dangers.
One more step, Mr. Hands, and I'll blow your brains out.
Oh! Yes, they're all here. Pompous Squire Trelawney, Captain Smollett, Dr. Livesey, the murderous Black Dog, rum-swigging Billy Bones, the villainous Blind Pew, and poor Ben Gunn, marooned on Treasure Island.
Welcome back to the Literary License Podcast, and we're now discussing Treasure Island, the 1950 Disney film starring Bobbie Driscoll. So, Jesse, what are your thoughts of the film?
The film, I thought it was good. I wasn't like overtly impressed, but I did actually like the kids acting. But again, like I said earlier, all I could think of watching the movie was like Barbossa, because Long John Silver just reminded me of Barbossa so much. I feel like it was the same character, aside from like the visuals, obviously. Yeah, and the kid, like Bobbie Driscoll, was really good in that film too. You know, because kid actors aren't always that good, and the acting kind of, I think, for the most part, made up for the lack of good fighting scenes, because the fighting scenes were kind of not that good. Especially with, they threw worse punches than Burke Devlin. Let's just
they did throw bad punches. But,
yeah.
But Robert Newton I think he got kind of pigeonholed into the Blackbeard the pirate thing, because he played quite a few pirate parts after this, like Blackbeard and stuff like that. I think he was even on an Abbott Costello, or I can't remember, something like that. But he always played a kind of pirate.
Yeah.
I think what kind of surprised me about the film, though, you would think that the swashbuckling nature of the story would have been showed more, considering that before this, especially in the 1930s and 1940s with Errol
Flynn and stuff.
And we had all those swashbuckling pirate movies at that time that were very popular. I mean, the pirate genre was its own genre at one point, up there with the cowboy Western films. And so you would think that there would probably have been a bit more a bit more lively action, a bit more swashbuckling, a little more swordplay. And I think that film does suffer. But what I can say about the film, it did show the dirtiness of everything.
Yeah.
Everybody was dirty. I mean, even the good guys looked sweaty.
Fingernails.
And this has probably had the ugliest cast I've ever seen in a film.
Oh my God, there's not hardly any. The little boy was attractive, but that's about it.
If I had to sleep, if I had to sleep with any of them, you're gonna have to pay me a lot of money. I'm sorry, but yeah.
Well, this was one of Disney's first films, right? I mean, we did talk about that.
Yeah, but there had to be some eye candy somewhere around at this time. I mean, it was 1950s. I mean, come on.
The women weren't in the film.
There was no women.
Well, yeah, the mom was cut out. Wasn't her storyline was cut out, sort of thing. I had to sit there and say it's faithful to the novel.
Pretty much.
Maybe too faithful. So that way, maybe it's
Livesey's like this really nice kind of guy, and Trelawney's kind of more of a buffoon, but they kind of, Livesey acted like the boy's father, and he really wasn't technically like that in the book.
No. I mean, everyone looked out for Jim in
some capacity.
To some capacity, and, they always kind of looked out for him.
When it was convenient for them. Once it was inconvenient, then,
Well, it's like, look in the movie. As soon as Trelawney just decides that this is my map. Why did they ask the boy, what do you think we got to do with it? No, this is my map. I'm going to outfit a ship, and we're going to go sail into the Caribbean, and I've got, this is my map now. I mean, I was like, what? What the hell? Why didn't they, at least, this is the boy's map. But he says, of course, he's going to share. But the boy's the one that said, this is Flint's map. I'm going to share with you. But they dominated the whole story when it came to the treasure.
I had to say, it's kind of an odd thing, because I guess when you get used to, when you've grown up on Disney and you've seen so many Disney films, I think we've all had our fair share of Disney films through our lives. The thing about Disney is that there's always there's always heart. There's always some kind of emotional center and some emotional heart, whether you want to laugh gleefully, or you want to, you get that break in the heart a little bit, or it just touches you. And Treasure Island doesn't have any of that. But then again, it's just like the novel. The novel doesn't have any of that either.
Yeah, I think that, I guess they didn't learn. I guess they knew how to play around with their cartoons. Like, let's face it, Snow White really didn't have a whole lot of love except the romantic interest in it. And, Bambi's mother gets shot. They try to shock you in the cartoons a little bit with something.
Yeah, but even some of the live action before this that had animation in it, Song of the South.
Right.
That's a big tearjerker. So
It
Dear to
is.
My Heart with Burl Ives, where Lavender Blue comes from. That's a big tearjerker. So they did do some live action films we had animation in before that did have great big heartful centers in the middle of it. Now you're doing that. So, and the thing is, the emotional center of the So Dear to My Heart and Song of the South that came out previous to this, both with Bobbie Driscoll, they did have that emotional center, but the emotional center wasn't from the animation that was added into the film. Right. It was added through the live action side of it. And then we got this, where basically, the first one without any animation in it, and there's kind of like no emotional center. You kind of watch it, and then you kind of watch it.
It's not swashbuckling. I hadn't seen it in years, and I couldn't remember why I haven't seen it in years. And this is probably why, because I grew up like was it the Black Sails? Remember that from the 1940s or whatever? You just had all these pirate movies. You're right. There was a whole genre of pirate movies that came out in the 30s and 40s and 50s. And there was lots of swashbuckling, swinging from rope, saving damsels from the rapist pirate kind of thing. They're beautiful clothing. They weren't near as sweaty and smelly looking, but you had a couple thrown in there that were. But it was a little more romanticized, whereas there's absolutely no romanticism at all in this movie.
Yeah.
None.
Yeah, there's nothing that would want to make you want to be a pirate in this.
No.
No Elizabeth Swann and Will Turner,
No Will Turner, no Elizabeth Swann, no Johnny
considering that when this film was released, it had to be cut because it was considered too violent. Sort of thing. Because, I have to say, this is probably one of the only Disney films I've watched that probably has the highest death count in it.
Well, maybe it's the editing.
So the older ones.
You think they edited the shit out of it so much they took out?
Well, I watched it on Disney Plus, and that's the unedited version.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
so,
is there a difference? I have not seen unedited.
The unedited version, the unedited is the edit is 87, and it now runs at 93 minutes. So the unedited versions was on Disney Plus, and it's what's available. That became available after 1997.
Well, maybe I did watch unedited because that was about that.
Was it very clean and crisp looking?
They cleaned it up.
You've seen the unedited version then?
Yeah, I did. Well, I'm just
desensitized
to violence and gore anyway. The kind of stuff I watch. This was probably like a cakewalk for me. So.
Yeah, but you never. Again, you didn't feel any danger for Jim at all.
No.
And I think that if you want if you're going to show this film, you got to put Jim into more perilous danger sort of thing, I think.
Well, because realistically, those situations were extremely dangerous. And I think the high emotion and then the high risk feeling, especially if you're going from his perspective, would have made the film more interesting, more on edge. And I think people would have been more compelled by Jim's character because he's the child in the situation. He's not an adult, and they kind of played it off as if he was able to handle it.
Well, actually, back then, 14 is kind of adult. You're old enough to get married and enlist, and
13-year-olds were getting married at that time.
Still, though, there was still.
That's why so many women. That's why so many women died during childbirth, didn't they? Because they were 13.
Oh God, makes sense. Everything makes sense now.
I'm still alive though in Arkansas, but.
Yeah, I live right next door to Arkansas. Trust me.
Arkansas, yeah.
Miller Mountain.
This film was a huge box office success
because it was Disney.
Well, considering that was up against Annie Get Your Gun, Treasure Island, of course, and then The Happiest Days of Your Life and Stage Fright by Alfred Hitchcock. It's 1950s. Little Women, which will be covering that same version. William Bennett, Father of the Bride, which is a huge movie. So it's quite interesting. But I also think that, I guess this is a well-beloved book, isn't it? It
is. It's a book that I remember my mother got my brothers when we were little.
I imagine this film probably did really well with dads taking their sons to the movies.
Yeah. It doesn't suck. And we got to remember, this is 50 some odd, 60. Well, how many years ago now? 1950? Mm-hmm. It's about 60 something years ago. And it was a different world. Come on. 10 years ago was a different world. Things changed.
I have to sit there and say it It was beautiful to look at. It was very beautiful.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I know they filmed a lot of it in London. Did they ever film anywhere outside of the UK?
No, it was all done in the UK. It was done on sound stages and done on beaches. What's interesting is that Bobbie Driscoll couldn't finish the film because his visa, he didn't have the right work visa. So a lot of Bobbie Driscoll, they had to do his face stuff really quickly. And most of Bobbie Driscoll, when you see him from behind, it's not him.
Oh, really? I did not read that.
Yeah, because the English, because he didn't have the right work visa, so England kicked him out of the country, and they gave him 2 weeks before they kicked him out.
You guys
so they had to do all this face to face. I have to agree with Jesse about Bobbie Driscoll. I think Bobbie Driscoll's a real find. People who don't know Bobbie Driscoll, he's in a film that's totally banned, one of Walt Disney's banned films, called Song of the South, which if you watch Song of the South,
because of weirdos, but
to be honest, is because people who are watching it are misinterpreting it because they're not slaves. This is after, it takes place after Civil War, and so the black people working on the plantation are working and getting paid, but people look. So that's the controversy behind that. But Bobbie Driscoll was founded basically for that film, and he was one of the highest paid children actors of the time, and they even made a special Oscar for him. He also did So Dear to My Heart, and he's also a fantastic film that one day we will cover called The Window. A little boy who cries wolf and he sees a murder.
I think they did a remake of that movie too. Johnny Depp was in that too, The Window.
Yeah. Now, another good thing about Bobbie Driscoll, if you when you watch this film, you will recognize his face because he is the face and voice of Walt Disney's Peter Pan, which would be the last thing that he would do for Disney before Disney kicked him out of his house.
I did not know that.
Because he suffered from acne, so that's the reason why they stopped.
Isn't that terrible? Oh, my God.
Oh, that's so sad. Today they would have been able to treat that.
Out of.
Well, I had to sit there and say I saw pictures of him as a teenager, and he kind of went through a Macaulay Culkin teenage years kind of thing. Where it's like, when you're cute as a kid doesn't necessarily mean you're a cute adult,
Well, he also had like a bunch of acne scars too, aside from just the acne, which I mean, it's really too bad that that's all it took for them to stop casting him, because I guess they didn't have appropriate treatment or something for that sort of thing.
They use a lot of they use a lot of makeup.
Exactly, and that would just cause it to get worse.
Oh God!
I have to say that he does kind of, in his adult years, he kind of looked like a movie that we covered about the transsexual killer, Homicidal.
Wow!
What movie was that?
Remember Homicidal, the one where it's the guy and he dresses up as a girl and he's getting married.
Oh yeah,
Remember the way the guy? Remember when she took off all the makeup, what she looked like as a guy?
Yeah,
that's what Bobbie Driscoll looked like when he got older. Like the murder in Homicidal.
That was really bad. Yeah, I remember that now. We've watched so many things. God.
I mean, I guess another thing you can sit there and say about Treasure Island also is that it begat, because it was such a huge popular ride, and then Disney World started. And one of the Disney World rides was the Pirates of the Caribbean, where you go on the ship and you basically would see scenes in Treasure Island, which would, of course, turn into the Johnny Depp movie, which is based on the ride, which is based on the Treasure Island movie.
Right.
So
I don't think I think I went on Pirates of the Caribbean. I don't remember Treasure Island when I was there.
It is the Pirates of the Caribbean is the Treasure Island ride. And
I've been on it. It wasn't a massive thrill ride either. You're just kind of moseying along on a boat, and you're looking at stuff going on in these caves and animatronics and stuff. And I was just like,
you do go down the water though, and you go through the fire.
Yeah, well, I was all excited. I was waiting. Jurassic Park was a better ride. It had a deeper waterfall and had a T-Rex trying to bite you on your way down. That was Universal Studios.
Well, I have to say the worst ride at Disney World, it's a Small World, because you there it's like it starts off like it's a small world after all. Okay, so you're in England, you see all these little dolls, and then you have to go through every single fucking country singing "It's a Small World" in every single language all the way through. By the time you get through, that song is stuck in your head. You pretty much want to put a gun in your mouth and shoot it off and just blow the back of your head.
Space Mountain, by far the best. I got in line 3 times for that one. Love the jump into hyperspace on the way up.
So, does anyone else have anything to say about Treasure Island the movie.
Leandro, you got nothing?
No. I don't know what to say.
Leandro for Christmas wants 8 copies of this movie so he can watch it on repeat.
We will send you all the different versions, Leandro, and there are several.
Okay, so I guess what we'll do is get the final thoughts of Treasure Island. So, Leandro, what are your final thoughts of Treasure Island? The movie.
No, the movie. I don't know. I realized that if you read the book, it's like, as you said, it's like the boy to me has more ownership in the story. In the movie, I felt like I can't remember the name of the owner of the parrot. Did you help me?
Long John Silver.
Yes.
Long.
He takes to me like more importance than the boy. I mean, he's there, but he's like helping all the time or doing all the actions. So I don't know. I found that a bit interesting, but I enjoy the movie. But I imagine it's because after seeing, as you said, movies like with more action, then you see that one, and you're expecting something that maybe is not never going to happen. But yeah, I like it.
And what about Self-Fix? What are your final thoughts?
I liked it. Like I said, I like the swashbuckling stuff more. Like, I mean, the Errol Flynn kind of stuff, you know? Like, you know what I'm talking about. I don't know. Peter O'Toole always comes to my mind, and I think of that movie, My Favorite Year. Sometimes, I don't know why. It's like one of my favorite movies, like, ever. I totally love that movie. But I just think of, you know, somebody with their big cutlass just swinging from a sash or the long arm of a ship. But it wasn't bad. I mean, like you said, you got to try to put yourself back in the time because it was the 50s. It sounds like it was. I'm feeling that Disney was kind of being experimental with this, considering they were really animated at that time. And I think look at the Pirates of the Caribbean. We vastly improved on the swashbuckling and whatnot.
Oh, exactly.
You know, all these years later. But, I mean, you have to start somewhere. And I think it's sort of like, I try to think of it as a little pirate, or a little pirate thing, you know, that people built on eventually. But they did have already a genre, like he said. I didn't really think of it until then. From like 1938 on, they were doing these swashbuckling movies because people liked the romanticism of it all. But I mean, if you're a hopeless romantic, this is not your flick. But if you want to see some good, clean fun with a boy, you know, growing up and hanging out with pirates and sea captains and all that stuff, looking for buried treasure, then it's probably your ticket.
And yourself, Jesse?
Well, I think considering that it's supposed to be, you know, a coming of age story, I don't think they did a very good job with depicting that, just because I think in order to catch that, the internal dialogue is almost necessary, because otherwise it does feel like more of like you're just standing on the outside kind of watching things take place. I mean, like you actually are watching a movie, but you don't get any insight into any of the characters really. It's very cut and dry, I feel like. But even though the acting was really good, because there was no emotion, even if it was anger or something, it's very difficult to like feel super invested into what you're watching. At least for me, that's how I felt. It was very cut and dry, but the acting was really good for the most part.
It was beautifully filmed.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I did sometimes Long John Silver's acting. I forget what the actor's name is, but his acting was a little over the top. Just
Robert Newton.
Yeah, it was slightly a bit much in some sections. I'm like, okay, can you just stop like doing that with your eyes and just like going back and forth between the eye thing? And it's like, okay, just
but
take
that's
it down
how
a couple
they
notches.
talk.
Well, maybe, but it was a bit much at some parts here and there.
Now I know how to irritate you.
Aye, matey. Aye.
I mean, for me, I am a Bobbie Driscoll fan. I kind of like watch try to watch everything he's done, whether it was the Fighting Sullivans or.
Yeah, he is a good actor. He was, I think, maybe one of the better actors in the movie, considering he was a kid. Because, like I said, even today, it's very difficult to find like a good kid actor, and a lot of the times, even now, they make kids act like. Not like kids in real life at all. I've seen so many movies where I'm like, wait, this is supposed to be a child right now? Children don't have these thoughts. Like, do they? I feel like people forget what it's like to be a child, what children actually want, what children actually think. And it's like, I just don't understand. Like, do these people not have kids? Like, what are they writing for? But they did a good job with this movie he did the actor himself did a very good job.
Kind of makes me sad to think he was chewed up and spit out by
I know
the film industry.
I know.
Another thing is you have to remember at that time you didn't get residuals, not like today.
Right.
Where things go. I think Peggy Lee's the one that started the residuals when she took Disney to the court for Lady and the Tramp, didn't she?
Right.
And that started the whole residuals for DVDs and Laserdisc and Blu-ray, so on and so forth.
Well, it's not like they didn't have enough to share. Yeah.
I mean, I have to sit there and say that I think it's beautiful to look at. I think it's very, very faithful for the most part from what we, it's a lot more faithful than the Count of Monte Cristo and some of the other books that we read and seen the screen for. So it's a lot more faithful in that aspect.
Or like the Edgar Allan Poe books.
Edgar Allan Poe, they really screw with those stories.
Yeah. But I do think that they could have, I don't know. I think that maybe if they weren't so faithful, maybe they would have been able to give it more to it. I do have to say some of the best scenes is when Jim gets stabbed. I thought that was quite well done. I was kind of like, oh, okay.
I know. I thought so too. I was kind of like, wow.
I was surprised too.
I thought for the 50s that was like a very daring thing to do.
I guess it was. Was it Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom had something like over 284 acts of violence? I guess this was their Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom kind of thing for back then.
I guess so. Yeah.
For me, it's more of a museum piece. I guess. I love Disney films. I've tried to see every single Disney film at least once in my life. Which, and
especially the old ones.
I love.
Yeah, and I have to say it's very, very rare that I've ever found one that I don't like, and this is one of those rare points where I don't know. I mean, I had to fight to stay awake for it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I had to run it back. I had to run it twice because I fell asleep.
No, I had to do that too once at night and then once in the morning because I was falling asleep to it because it took a long time to get into it. But I did get more into it, I think, like I said earlier, towards the middle or, towards the end because it did pick up. And he is a good actor. I think when they focus a little bit more on – I liked the interactions between Long John Silver and I keep forgetting the boy's name. Will? Is that his name?
Jim.
Bill, that's what it is. Yeah, Jim.
Jim. Where are you guys getting Bill from?
I like the interactions between those two the most. I felt like those
was Christopher Robbins.
Yeah, he looks like Christopher Robin.
He does kind of.
I mean, I have to say it's well cast. I have to say what I will salute Disney for on this film is that they didn't go for beauty. They went for
not at all
the dirtiness of it,
character.
and they did try to go for more of a realistic view of them. There was no beautiful pirate that women would fall in love with. I mean, they were all dirty and disgusting. I mean, even their teeth. I mean, none of them had good teeth.
None of them had eyeliner.
Yeah, they made sure that their teeth were really bad, and I think they tried. And maybe that's a little bit of why Treasure Island might fail a little bit.
Well, these people, let's think of their hygiene back then. They didn't have
but you have to admit, but you have to sit there and say now that if you see a pirate thing, whether it's Black Sails or whether it's Pirates of the Caribbean,
Black Sails, they had bad teeth. They just
did, but behind it all, there are some hunky people in there.
Their Billy Bones was hot. Flint was hot. Long John Silver, even with one leg, was hot. I mean, they were just all beautiful.
But even looking at Errol Flynn sort of stuff, where I think Disney went for more of a realistic approach, which I have to take my hats off for that because it would have been very easy to throw. I don't know.
Beautiful woman in a romantic story, maybe.
Yeah. Well, just throw in some hunky Tab Hunter or something from the 50s or something like that. You know what I mean?
Tab Hunter.
But do you know what I mean? I'm just saying some hunky guy from the 50s, you know. Whether
I'm trying to think of some guy
or,
from the Clark Gable.
Well, he's 30s, but 50s was Rock Hudson, Rory Calhoun.
Rory Calhoun would have been a
Hunter.
great pirate.
Yeah. So I had to take my. At least they went for more authenticity. But
yeah,
I have to understand. But then again, I did see the only other version of Treasure Island I saw was Muppets Treasure Island, and I'm not involved with that either.
There was one on Amazon. It was the 3-part series. It was called Treasure Island. And there weren't a lot of stars in it, but it was really interesting. I watched it because I just wanted a different spin on it. So it's like an hour and 15 interludes of 3 parts. Oh. And it was really an interesting Long John Silver. It really was. And it showed that Flint was the one that cut his leg off. He fired a cannonball at him and killed, just messed with all these people. And, how Ben Gunn was one of his right-hand mans. It was just really interesting what they did for the beginning of it. If you get a chance to watch an hour of it, it's kind of interesting.
Well, maybe that's what you need in the book and in the movie. Is some background history of some of these people.
Yeah. Maybe there was, and Long John Silver was kind of in a relationship with a brothel worker lady kind of thing.
Of course, like you would.
The mother and the brothel worker lady kind of get together. You know who played the girl in Harry Potter? She played the girl ghost there, the one that was in the well.
Myrtle.
Well of Souls. Yeah, she was the mother. She played the mother. Oh my God.
When she was Myrtle, she was like 38 years old when she's playing that role.
She is such a British actor. It's not even funny. She is so British. It's not even funny. Even in this, I go, that's Myrtle. I go, I know that voice anywhere.
Crying Myrtle.
Crying Myrtle. Yeah. It was an interesting take though.
Well, this brings us to the end of the Literary License Podcast. Make sure you like, share, and we're also now on Amazon. So log into your local Amazon in your local country, look at Literary License Podcast, and write us a review. It would help us out a lot.
Write us a review. Even if you don't like us, give 5 stars.
Next week, we'll be covering episodes 4 through 8 of Bewitched, season 1. So make sure you join us for Bewitched. And our next classic novels, which is Books to Screen episode, will be Call of the Wild by Jack London. And we'll be covering the 1930-something film with So make sure you tune in. So it's good night for myself, Keith Shago, and good night, Leandro.
Good night.
Good night, Vicky.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Jesse.
Good night, and don't let the pirates bite.
I thought that irritated you.
And we'll be seeing you next week for Bewitched, episodes 4 through 8, season 1, and next classic novel is Call of the Wild by Jack London.
This has been a Literary License Podcast production. Until next time, and do not forget to comment or share. We would so admirably appreciate your support.